In recent years, a woman has been killed by a man every 3 days in the UK on average. Also, domestic abuse cases rise by up to 38% during major football events. So I'm asking now, should we be doing more to protect women? And if we do think that, how do we even go about it? Judita, I'm going to come to you first on this one. I opened, I think it was the Daily Mail this week, and page after page seemed to be horrific news about women being victims of crime. And it was just utterly depressing. And the situation just does not seem to be getting any better. What on earth is happening? What can we do about it?
I think it's the kind of division of power, because you can't really help women's issues if you don't intrinsically understand them. And when you think about when things like this happen, it always feels that the buck ends with the decision of a man. So to get legislature, to get funding, to get action made, you have to go, the final point is always a man. So when you think, like when they say the saying, the fish rots from the head, if you don't put women in positions of power, final decision-making power, the infrastructure will never be reflective of the kind of protections women need. And I remember I was listening during the elections, I was listening to Harriet Harman, and she was saying when she first started as an MP, there were 20 women MPs, now there are 223. And she's a big advocate for collective working together across the aisles for the betterment of the position of women in politics and in society. That's what it would take. I
mean, Kelvin, I'm not, obviously you are the only male in the room at the moment, but when I was talking on social media about this, yesterday it was, saying sort of like, you know, not all men murder women. Obviously they don't, but most women who are murdered are killed by men. I mean, that is a fact. It's a horrible fact, but it's true. And I'm not having to go at men here. But some of the comments I got back from men were appalling. Yeah, some women deserve it. That was actually a genuine quote. And someone said to me, well, there's still a lot of you about, meaning what exactly? And then obviously the other one I got a lot of was, well, more men are killed by men. What you can do about that? And it's like, yeah, missing the point. That's awful too. Get that. But that is awful. But what is it with some men that they can't? I mean, you know, men have wives, they have daughters, they have mothers. What is it with men that they can't see the issue that doesn't seem to be getting any better?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for those kind of men who wrote those kinds of notes.
And I wouldn't
notes for you.
But I mean, it's just shocking that.
And we have a current case. Look, I recognise that we can't go into the detail of it, but we have a current case in which 3 women. I cannot remember the last time there was a 3 murders like that of this sort. I think what you have to look at, you have to look at the family. I mean, without going into it all, I mean, after all, the guy is actually in hospital. He's never been questioned, right? So there's no question that we're crossing into that line. But he has his relative, his closest is his sibling, who is currently doing 30 years for murder. So this is one family with two brothers who've turned out. One has actually been convicted, and the other one seems to be in some way a suspect involved in this.
So do you think we need tougher sentences for men who murder women?
Well, if you take this case, regardless of who did this case, whoever killed these 3 ladies, right, is likely to go to jail for the rest of their lives. Now, the current suspect is 26. That means 50 or 60 years. With us paying effectively, I read a piece of research on it the other day. It costs $50,000 a year to operate a cell. 50 years of this, that's £3 million. And this guy gets fed 3 meals a day. He's got a nice warm cell, right? That is our current justice system. And so,
that sounds like a yes.
So our issue is the following: should we actually be debating whether we should bring back the death penalty? I mean, I recognise Parliament is never going to allow it, but however, Parliament would never have allowed Brexit, right? So a referendum might change all this. Now, I'm just saying, I don't know who carried out this murder, right?
No, as I say, it's a live case. And
I don't know who carried it out. All I'm saying is that if somebody did, then in that case, should we be considering an area where we haven't considered it now for the thick end of what must be damn near 80, 90 years.
Judita, do you think that's a reasonable opinion, that maybe the death sentence for horrific murders of women, and most women are murdered by men that they know, either a partner or an ex-partner?
It's worth putting it on the table to debate it, because everything comes with its pros and cons, and getting it wrong when it comes to the death penalty can be horrific. So that's something that needs a lot of debate. But I do think harsher sentencing, reviewing things like the statutes of limitations, and also when you think about if a woman is a victim of a crime by a man, chances are she has to pick up the phone or go to a station or report it to a man. That's already a second degree of trauma. That's why I say you have to have a filtration system that peppers women into every level of protections for women. Because when you feel you don't have sanctuary to run to when something horrible is done to you, you internalize it, and then this victim culture is perpetuated within female society, where you just pass on generational trauma.
Right, well, I happen to know through some friendship groups, right, of a rape allegation that was made, and the people involved in it, the police on the other side, were women. They were, by the way, spectacular. I mean, the women police officers in dealing with it. So I think you probably have a reasonable point that if a woman is facing some kind of violence at all, the last thing she wants to do is report it to another man.
I mean, and over the fact is that over the past 4 years, prosecutions for rape in England and Wales have fallen by 70%. Many women, when they're asked about why they don't report their rapes, they say they feel like they are not going to be listened to, they're not going to be believed, and they are going to be treated like the criminal.
But even the men you said you spoke to, when you exist within a society where you know it's commonplace for victim blaming, that, oh, why were you wearing this? Why were you there?
Yes,
why do you talk like that?
What are you expecting?
Yes. So what you already begin from a position of what have I done wrong to be a victim. So you've already stagnated the pool of justice and reform and someone finding recourse for a remedy to what they've been through. So the whole thing around is just the deck is stacked against women. You have to look at setting up society in such a way that you recognize what the position that women hold, which is one at a deficit, and what they need and the outcome.
So we're coming into a parliament. I think we're 40% of the parliament is now women, I think, which is the highest number we've ever had. Do you believe that and I think with the cabinet, they're trying to get to 50% of the cabinet, aren't they? I'm not sure what the number is. Are we actually going to see our administration at the top level? Are we actually going to see laws which are aimed towards your point? Are we going to see it? Because I can't believe men are not going to block any of this stuff. So So are we going to see laws and statutes which actually favour the area that you're worried about?
I think that's what Harriet Harman's point was so good about. She says that there has to be cross-party collaboration on issues that directly affect women. Well, that way it's going to be on the floor. People will be debating it. And once you put it out there, anyone, like you said, any male MP who then goes against it, you're jeopardising your own position because you're going against 51% of the population.
Judita, when Jess Phillips read out a list of murdered women over the past 12 months in Parliament on International Women's Day, do you know how many male MPs actually turned up to hear it? 3.